Real Story. One topic, 1 hour every week. And this week, a first in human history. The number of people on planet Earth is going to fall. Demographers say we can't prevent it. Are we adapting fast enough to ensure decline doesn't mean extinction? China's president, for one, is trying, using technology and artificial intelligence. President Xi Jinping knows that although there are more than 2 people of working age for every retired person, by 2080 there'll be less than 1. Who will pay for old age then? Some regions, sub-Saharan Africa among them, still have decades of population growth to come, but face instability because they don't create enough jobs for those who will need them. One potential solution, politically unpalatable to some, is migration. Fewer people may be good news for Earth's ecology, but can we ensure it's also good news for us? That's the Real Story from the BBC, coming up after the news.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. A report by the UN Human Rights Office has laid bare horrific violations being committed by both sides in Sudan. The report covers the first 8 months of the war. Here's Imogen Folks.
The UN report details the most atrocious violations. This week, video emerged in which students were beheaded by men in uniform. They were later seen parading the decapitated heads through the streets, chanting ethnic slurs. The report also details rape, including of children, but says the stigma around sexual violence means few victims will report it. Satellite imagery shows widespread use of heavy explosives on densely populated areas, killing large numbers of civilians. And in Darfur, the report suggests thousands have died in ethnically motivated attacks.
Spanish firefighters are working to cool down a high-rise residential building in the city of Valencia that was consumed in a blaze. Before they can enter it to carry out a search, 4 people are known to have died, but it's feared that number could rise as at least 14 others are unaccounted for. Guy Hedgecoe looks at the possible causes of the blaze.
There have been technical engineers talking about this type of polyurethane cladding, and on this building we're told it had an aluminium cover over it, but there was an area of ventilation between the cladding itself and the aluminium covering, which allowed air to go through it, and some experts have said that could create a chimney effect, so it could encourage the spread of fire. And also, when you add to that the fact that there were very high winds in Valencia yesterday, which were helping the fire spread to an adjoining building as well.
Reports in the Israeli media say that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has presented his post-war plan for Gaza to the Security Cabinet. Here's Sebastian Usher.
The ideas in the one-page document that Mr. Netanyahu reportedly showed his cabinet are similar to those he's expressed since the start of the war in Gaza, but it's the first time he's formally presented them to the cabinet for approval. Israeli media says the key proposal is to install Palestinian officials to run Gaza who have no links to Hamas or to countries that, in Mr. Netanyahu's view, support terrorism, and the Israeli military would continue to be able to operate throughout Gaza for an indefinite period to prevent the resurgence of militant activity. Palestinians have already rejected such proposals as a formula for Israeli occupation.
Israel is sending envoys to Paris today to join talks with the US, Qatar and Egypt on a potential deal for a ceasefire and the release of more hostages in Gaza. The US is pushing hard for a ceasefire before the start of Ramadan in mid-March. This is the latest world news from the BBC. Several cities in Ukraine have come under renewed overnight bombardment by Russia. The authorities in Odessa say 3 people were killed when a drone hit what they called a civilian enterprise by the coast. Officials in Dnipro say 8 people were injured when a high-rise residential block was badly damaged. Meanwhile, President Putin has promised to continue to strengthen Russia's army on the eve of the 2nd anniversary of his full-scale invasion of Ukraine. India says it's asked Moscow for the early release of some Indians working with the Russian army in Ukraine. The Foreign Ministry is urging Indian nationals to exercise caution and stay away from the war. The response by Delhi came after reports that around 100 Indians had been recruited in the past year. Athletes have paid tribute to the runner Kelvin Kiptum at his funeral in Kenya, 2 weeks after his death in a car crash. The Olympic champion Amos Kipruto was a pallbearer. He described Kiptum as humble, focused and straightforward, and said his marathon world record would stand and would be used to remember him. And Soy is there.
Crowds have come out to mourn a man who held so much promise. One of their own, Kelvin Kiptum, grew up around here, herding his father's livestock, but he was destined for something way greater. And he made a mark. At only the age of 24, he had run 3 of the 7 fastest times in marathon history. And to many people here, he was a big inspiration. And that is really what they are celebrating.
China has again denied that Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang are engaged in forced labour, following calls by US legislators for Volkswagen to halt operations there. On Wednesday, senior members of Congress raised concerns with Volkswagen over reports that several of its car models contained parts made by forced labour in the far western Chinese region. BBC News.
This is The Real Story from the BBC. I'm Sean Lay with your weekly deep dive into a story that's making news and changing lives. And this week, for 200 years now, the global population has kept growing. Demographers, specialists who count people, predict that later this century, when there may be up to 11 billion of us, numbers will peak and then begin to fall. In Japan, it's happened already. A quarter of people there are over 65, and soon it'll be true in parts of Europe too. Good diet and better healthcare is leading to longer lives. But fewer births eventually means fewer people of working age. With the diminishing number of people of working age expected to support a growing population of retirees, our government's ready to shape what happens next. Here's the BBC's Lucy Williamson reporting from the streets of Paris.
It took minutes for this peaceful protest to turn violent. Hidden amongst the main demonstration, masked protesters who are now taking on the police.
Cause government plans to raise the state pension age by just 2 years. Will policies once considered impossible soon be up for debate? In Africa, populations are already beginning to boom. Africa's youth is hungry for opportunity, but frustrated by the lack of it, potentially meaning trouble. Thousands undertake a perilous journey to Europe, which is trying to send them back. Here's Italy's far-right Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni.
I think that a quota of legal migration where it is necessary and can be fully integrated can make a positive contribution to our economies, but I remain convinced that it would be more responsible for us to entrust European citizens with the solution to the European welfare system crisis. Citizens who instead are customizing to the idea that decline is a destiny. Well, decline is not a destiny, decline is a choice. And it is not the choice that we will do.
Europeans say no now, but will they have to think again? Could Africa learn from India, where the combination of youth and technology has transformed a sleeping giant into an economic tiger, giving it global political clout too? Increasingly educated, with more choice of when to have children and how many, is empowering India's women. It also means a declining birth rate and eventually the same challenge Europe and Japan are facing now. Does old age have to mean retirement? Will population imbalance make migration not just necessary but desirable? Is demography destiny, or is there still time to make a declining global population a happier one? Well, over the next hour, we're going to try to explain why, for the first time in human history, the global population is going to fall. But we'll also be discussing what policy options exist to try to ensure mankind is empowered, not enfeebled. With me to do that, the Real Story panel. Elmer Laguna is Associate Professor of Demography and Director of the Population Institute, College of Social Sciences and Philosophy at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Elmer, thank you for joining us on the programme. What about your country's experience? Is there something you can tell us about from the Philippines that demonstrates how the demographic transition has already begun?
Yes, this is more of a personal anecdote. I remember I grew up in the 80s, no? So Christmas, for example, I went home for holidays last December, and I remember how happy or how chaotic Christmas can be with all the cousins and children's around. And this time around, I noticed that we don't have kids anymore, no? In my family, my niece and my nephews, they're already in their late 20s, and they're not planning to have their marriage and childbearing is still not in their agenda. And what they have are dogs and cats. So I think that it's not just my family. I also notice it even among my cohort. No? So that's how I see that there is a shift already in terms of preference and actual number of children.
So more rumoured around the Christmas tree as each year
Yeah.
comes. Elma, thank you very much. That's a very intriguing, very graphic illustration of the
Mhm.
point. Frank Zwieszny, Senior Researcher at the Federal Institute for Population Research in Germany, is also Executive Director of the German Society for Demography. Welcome to the programme, Frank. Can you give us an anecdote or an example of some kind from your own country of how the demographic transition is already affecting you?
I mean, Germany has a large baby boomer generation that is now entering the retirement age. And of course, we already have a retirement age that was raised from 65 years to 67 years. And I myself am part of this baby boomer generation. So I'm expected to retire in a few years. And it is still not clear whether we have early retirement or if there are any incentives to stay on for a few extra years to counter the shortage in experts in the workforce in general.
Frank, thank you very much. Also with us is Professor Jack Goldstone, who is at George Mason University in Virginia in the United States. Professor Goldstone is co-editor of Political Demography, How Population Changes Are Reshaping International Security and National Politics. Jack Goldstone, how is demography reshaping the United States?
Well, the changes are already here. I love Elma's story about all of a sudden you realize there are not as many children around. Here we're realizing there are a lot more seniors around. The baby boomers, people talk about, oh, when the baby boomers retire. Well, the very youngest baby boomers turn 60 this year, and Generation X will enter their 60s and start to retire now in the next few years. I'd say the biggest news is that the Social Security Trust Fund announced that it's now only 9 years until they will run out of money to pay full retirement and health care benefits for seniors if nothing is done. So the priority is here. Of course, 9 years seems distant to a lot of people, but we don't want to hit that date and all of a sudden have benefits drop by 25%. So the aging is here.
Thank you all very much. Let's begin with Japan, which the International Monetary Fund once described as the test kitchen for shrinkonomics, a word which captures why some people worry about the consequences for an economic model designed around growth. Japan's Prime Minister, Fumio Kishida, says the declining birth rate is putting the future of Japan at risk. It's estimated that there were fewer than 800,000 births in 2022. That's down from 2 million in the 1970s. Nobuko Kobayashi, herself divorced and now single, told the BBC why so many women are choosing not to have children.
There's a general reasons. Maybe I can distill into three. So one is a financial reason because tuition and after-school costs a lot. So having a child is financially burdensome for people. Second, I would say is a career reason because the prime time for women to have children, that's also the prime time to advance your career. Thirdly, I think people today have many life priorities. So marriage is one of the priorities, but not as high as before. Having children, not as high as before. And there are many competing priorities for your time. And if you cannot have a living nanny, if your husband is not helpful, then you're in a very precarious situation being a mother and working. So that makes many people, I think, hesitate.
Elma Laguna, do you want to pick up on that point Nobuko Kobayashi was making there to our reporter in Japan? This is all down, quite a large part of it, isn't it, to changing patterns of fertility. And that's really something that tells us a lot about the changing role of women and changing attitudes to childbirth.
Exactly. I mean, we also see that in most Asian countries, South Korea, for example, Singapore and Thailand, and to some extent in the Philippines, that, you know, with more of Filipino women being educated, there's this realization that maybe their role is not limited to being wife and mother. So it opens a lot of opportunity for them. So there's this, it's either the tendency to delay marriage and childbearing, or to withdraw from it, meaning not to have kids or not to get married, or to get married but not to have kids. That's the consequence of greater women empowerment, or giving women more freedom to choose what they want.
There are some predictions that have been made about who is going to see this aging process and when it's going to happen. There are some figures which were published last year that suggest that Japan hit its first major shift in 2013, so more than a decade ago, when a quarter of the population was 65 and older. Eastern Europe, China, Britain, South Korea are almost at that stage, and they're going to be followed by other parts of the world over the coming decades before the end of the century. This is, Jack Goldstone, an unstoppable force.
It is, and if there were no countries that were still having large numbers of young people, we'd really have to deal with a tremendous global shortfall. But that's not the case. It's true that the richer countries of East Asia, North America, and Europe face declining population, but there are about 2 billion young people still in South Asia and in Africa who are anxious to contribute to the global economy. Whether they do it by migration or they do it by economic growth in their own countries, there's still plenty of room for the global economy to grow. I think the real risk is if countries wall themselves off from trade and migration, and then you've got a country like Japan that is likely to see its prime labor force fall by half in the next 30 years. And if they simply say, that's right, we're going to be Japan times 1/2 in a few decades, there really is no way out to face declining economies.
Frank Swieczny in Germany, are European countries looking at what is happening in Japan and asking what we need to change now, or are they just kind of basically waiting for it to happen and then see what changes they might make?
Yeah, I mean, many European countries, Germany, Italy, for example, they are not far behind Japan in the process of aging, because all European countries have now sub-replacement fertility. That means that fewer children are born than needed to replace the generation of their parents.
Can I just interrupt?
And all
that replacement figure is, I understand, 2.1 children per woman, per female in the population. And you're saying now that the number has fallen below that on average.
Yeah.
And therefore that means there's a kind of decline set in that kind of really can't be reversed unless there's some dramatic change in people's habits.
So in Germany, the replacement level was hit in the early 1970s. Since then, fertility is lower than 2.1. And without migration, Germany would have started to decline from the 1970s onwards. And as the population is aging, we see the number of deaths rising, the number of births declining, so that the gap between births and deaths is widening. And that is also the reason why the migration that kept the population growing is not really compensating the aging process. So if you bring in young people from abroad, that smooths out and delays the aging process, but it is not fully compensating the aging.
Jack Goldstone, in the United States and in Australia, we're told that by 2050, just under 24% of the population is projected to be 65 or older, and that actually is slightly less bad than the situation in countries in Europe and parts of Asia, including Japan. Therefore, there are a few more years to prepare there, in your case and in Australia. Does that give you much cause for hope? I mean, is there a process globally in which people are looking at those who've entered this situation first and are already starting to learn lessons?
Unfortunately, I think our approach to population change is a lot like our approach to climate change. That is, yes, there may be a problem there. Yes, maybe other countries will have to worry about it, but we'll manage fine and we'll adjust as we go. That is, there's not a general sense that we are entering a completely new era and need to adjust our society in significant ways. That's the problem with something that builds up slowly over time. It's often easy to put off adjustments because you think you can make them in the future. But that's not the reality with either climate change or population change, because if you wait until a quarter or a third of your population is over 65, then you suddenly have to make dramatic cuts in benefits, increases in taxes, changes to retirement age. It's much better to anticipate what will happen in 10 or 15 years, explain to people, look, it's great that everyone's living longer. It's wonderful that you've decided to have fewer children so that you have more pets or more freedom, but you can't expect to live a totally different lifestyle than we lived 30 or 40 years ago and keep exactly the same benefits and retirement. We can't do it. So let's think about what will give people the retirement they want while also retaining the security and benefits without bankrupting our country. And that's a conversation that most countries really have not seriously begun.
I want to move geographically, as it were, from Japan and East Asia and Europe, if that's not a bit confusing for you, if you've got a globe or a map in front of you. And we're going to zoom out, as it were, and look at another part of the world, one that's been mentioned already, and that is Africa. Because within 150 years, Europe's share of the global population has fallen from 12% to just 4%, because other parts of the world are booming and Europe is in decline in terms of its numbers. Most dramatically of all, in much of Africa, there could be what's known as a demographic dividend this century, but only if governments understand how to respond to the growing numbers of people. The total population in Chad, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Senegal, Somalia and South Sudan is expected to expand from 118 million now to around 500 million by the end of the century. Those countries are in the Sahel, a region already threatened by expanding deserts, overgrazing and freshwater shortages. They're also increasingly unstable. And as the economist Dr. Ndugo Sambesela told us on The Real Story last week, when we discussed the political crisis in Senegal, many young Africans are trying to take their frustrated potential elsewhere.
Senegal managed to record, something like 6% annual GDP growth, economic growth. But the thing is, in most of African countries, these rates of economic growth are not associated with decent job creation. And that's an issue, because most of the people, they simply could not find decent employment. And most of our young people, generally, they decide to take makeshift boats to try to come to Europe.
Let's talk about the implications of that, because it's quite an interesting point that Jack Goldstein, you've already raised. And this is about the potential of migration and whether some countries and continents are willing to grasp it.
It's something that goes both ways. On the one hand, the countries that receive immigrants can benefit. The countries that send immigrants can benefit because those who leave often get jobs, send remittances back home. They acquire skills that they can bring back home and start new companies. A lot of India's growth that you mentioned was in fact jump-started by entrepreneurs who had spent a period abroad, learned how to build a modern business corporation, and then brought those skills back home to India. So the migration should be a win-win for everyone. But the problem is, if the migration occurs in surges that overwhelm the receiving country, then that's not good for the immigrants or for the receiving country, because it creates political tensions that are enormous obstacles to the economic integration that we all need. So we need mechanisms to try and moderate those migration pressures. And probably the best one is to help people find jobs in their own country. That is, there's a kind of big foreign investment frontier in educating and building enterprises in Africa. But there's a shortage of capital, there's a lag in education, and there's often unstable governance, all of which are working against reaching that demographic dividend that would benefit so many people if Africa could achieve.
Elma Laguna in the Philippines, Is your country enjoying a demographic dividend? I mean, you've got lots of, and have actually for many years, had lots of Filipinos working all around the world. I mean, frankly, as one health service professional in the UK told me, she said Filipinos are the first choice for many health trusts when they're desperately trying to find migrant workers to compensate for the lack of domestic ones.
Yes, that concept of demographic dividend, that has been the buzzword, in the Philippines. The promise that because for so long we have high fertility, and now this cohort of young people will be entering the labor force. But the thing is, unless there is enough investment in education and health, human capital development, and you have also jobs that would assure that there's employment for these new entrants into in the labor force. Unfortunately, we don't see that in the Philippines. That's why migration is always an option. But the thing for the Philippines particularly is there's this idea of brain drain and care drain. Yeah. Most of the skilled workers, the ones living abroad, because they have the means, they have the capital to migrate. So I think we're losing in that aspect from this migration of the skilled and the care workers. But at the same time, I don't say really that there is a drain because of the large population. There's always someone to take on the task. So aside from the economic benefit that this migration brings in, I think there's also the social cost. We always emphasize that because that's one aspect of migration that is ignored.
And it's
what happens to Filipino families, for example. We have a generation of children. It's been 50 years now since the government institutionalized labor export. So it's like a government policy to export labor. So it's been 50 years, as I've said. So what have we become? There's a generation, actually, there's a cohort of Filipinos who grew up either with only the mother or in some cases without both parents. So I think these are the things that we should also factor in when we discuss immigration, and particularly from the sending country perspective.
Thank you. Frank Swieszny in Germany, this is a real problem, isn't it? Some countries have seen this demographic dividend. Others, it seems to have passed by. For example, parts of Latin America, where they had the big numbers in the 80s and the 90s and the start of this century, but they never actually had the jobs and the skills that meant they could take full advantage of it.
Yeah, the demographic dividend is not a given, it needs to be earned. So what you need is you need to invest in human capital. You need to invest in people, in their education, in their health. Otherwise, you cannot reap the benefits of a demographic dividend. And the demographic dividend is also kind of a really short window of opportunity. So all that needs to come at the right point in time. So you need to be ready to employ all those young people. Otherwise, your youth bulge that moves from youth into the working age is just ending up in unemployment. And then your demographic dividend can be a demographic burden.
We're going to pause our discussion for a few minutes. After that, our real story panel, Frank Swieszny from the Federal Institute for Population Research in Germany, Elma Laguna from the Population Institute at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and Jack Goldstone from George Mason University in Virginia in the United States will be discussing what policy options we need to debate now in order to manage the world's changing demography. Shrinking to extinction or smaller but happier? That's when the real story continues right after the news.
This is the BBC World Service, meeting tea farmers in the mountains of Nepal who live in the shadow of powerful neighbours.
Tea is the most popular beverage after water around the world. 2.6 billion people drink tea every single day. We are sandwiched between the tea giants, China and India. It's not about you are better than me or I am better than you. It's about how we are different.
We have no concept in the West of how much effort, how much passion goes into making Orthodox tea.
Seeing that farmers are living in poverty, that's not fair.
A lot of tea gardens are operating at a loss just to keep the market going. We keep wanting the price to go down when it actually should be going up.
Storm over a teacup. Tuesday at 9:30 and 20 GMT.
Coming up on The Real Story in the next half hour, with a slow but unstoppable decline in the human population imminent, what can we do to ensure that our fewer descendants enjoy better, more sustainable lives? By mid-century in much of Europe and some parts of Asia, commitments to elderly people are expected to consume a quarter of GDP. What policies could help us manage what could be a traumatic transition in countries already ageing and in those that are yet to peak? That's after a summary of the news.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. The UN Human Rights Office has laid bare grave violations being committed by both warring sides in Sudan. It's given more evidence of ethnically motivated mass killings, child rape, and the indiscriminate bombing of civilians. Spanish firefighters are working to cool down a gutted apartment block in Valencia to search for trapped people. The blaze is confirmed to have killed 4 people, but more than a dozen remain missing. Israel's Prime Minister is reported to have tabled plans for Gaza's post-war governance. They would see the Israeli military operating throughout the Strip for an indefinite period. The Palestinian Authority official called the blueprint disastrous. Russia has continued bombarding Ukrainian cities as the second anniversary of its invasion approaches. Officials say 3 people were killed in Odessa and 8 people were injured in Dnipro. Meanwhile, India says it's asked Moscow for the early release of some Indians working with the Russian army in support jobs in the war in Ukraine. Around 100 Indians are said to have been recruited in the past year. China has again denied that Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang are engaged in forced labour. It follows calls by US legislators for Volkswagen to halt operations there. Fellow athletes have been paying tribute to the runner Kelvin Kiptum at his funeral in Western Kenya. Kiptum, who died in a car crash almost 2 weeks ago, was described as humble and focused. Japan's most successful sumo wrestler has been demoted and given a pay cut after one of his protégés was found to have repeatedly assaulted other wrestlers. Mongolian-born Hakuo has apologized and said he takes responsibility. And a court in India's West Bengal state has asked the authorities to rename 2 lions in a zoo after a right-wing Hindu group argued that they hurt religious sentiments. BBC News.
You're listening to The Real Story from the BBC World Service with me, Sean Lay. This week, we're examining how we can manage a global population due to approach 11 billion people and then, by the end of the century, start to fall to ensure man is empowered, not extinguished. Our Real Story panel are Frank Swieszny, who is from the Federal Institute for Population Research in Germany, Alma Laguna from the Population Institute in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and in the United States, Professor Jack Goldstone, who's co-edited the book Political Demography, How Population Changes Are Reshaping International Security and National Politics. They explained why global population is changing. In the remaining half hour, we're going to look at the policy choices available to influence what happens to human society as a result. Now, some countries have spent decades trying to ensure that demography isn't destiny. China's one-child policy was motivated by a fear that it wouldn't otherwise be able to feed its population. But demographers say a country's average fertility rate, the number of children per woman, must be 2.1 for the population to sustain itself. China is now desperately encouraging people to have more children, fearing its economic success and political stability could otherwise be at risk. France has spent years trying to, with what are called pro-natalist policies, cash handouts and lots of allowances for new parents. So has it worked? This is from France 24, France 24 TV.
723,000 babies were born in 2022, so sounds like a lot of babies, but it's actually 19,000 fewer babies than in 2021. And people are actually concerned by the 2022 birth rate. It's the lowest since 1946, so right after the Second World War. It's such a historic drop that some people are saying that France is in the middle of a baby bust.
Well, Frank Swieszny was listening to that in Germany. Those policies, Frank, have helped make French fertility rates the highest among the 27 countries in the European Union, so higher than Germany among others, but they are still below replacement rate and they're falling. Do you think such policies are doomed to fail?
I'm not sure that they are doomed to fail because in many countries the lowest low fertility, say 1.4 or even less, has been avoided by making this pro-natalistic, pro-family choices in policies. And of course, it increases and it betters the quality of life of families. So the money is spent well if it contributes to a more equal society and better quality of life. You don't need to measure the success of such policies only in terms of fertility rates. That would be too short, in my opinion. But you can see that the chances to really influence low fertility is limited. Germany spent a lot of money and increased their spending for families and the support for children in the last decades, and the total fertility rate is still rather low, fluctuating around 1.5, 1.6. That's an up from below 1.4 in the 1970s, 1980s, but it is still far below replacement.
Jack Goldstein in the United States?
Well, the experience of countries around the world is that even vigorous and costly pronatal policies have had only a minimal impact in raising fertility. Now, as Frank said, they've done a lot of good providing a better quality of life for women, and I would add they're good for the economy because they enable women to be full-time participants in the labor force. So making it easier for women who have one or two children to continue in their careers is a great benefit to everyone, but it's not going to induce them to have 3 children. And frankly, if large numbers of women have 1 or 2 children, you're not going to be at replacement, because to average 2 or more children, given that some women will inevitably choose to have 0 or 1, you need quite a substantial number of families with 3 or 4 children. And as Elma said, even in the Philippines, we're not seeing that. That's just not likely to come back in any volume in Europe. Women have grown used to the idea of having a career. And frankly, the entire consumption package, housing, transportation, really all depends on having 2 incomes in order to achieve a stable middle-class lifestyle. So I think the days of 3 or more children as common are simply behind us.
Elma Laguna, in the Philippines, that raises a really interesting question, doesn't it? Which is, if these policies aren't working, what's the alternative to trying to sustain fertility levels? Is there an alternative? Is there a policy alternative?
I agree with Frank's and Jack's observation that particularly in the experience of most European countries, low fertility seems resistant to pronatalist policy innovations. So there's really no turning back. Once you hit that replacement level, so it's very rare that you're able to revert.
So China's attempts, you don't think, are really going to bear much fruit? Because, I mean, China is predicted, I think I'm right in saying this, by towards the end of the century, to lose about 200 million people compared to where it stands now. And it's getting to the point where, at the moment, I think it's about just over 2 people of working age for every person who's retired, where there's not even going to be 1 person of working age for every person who's of retired age, unless something changes. So they have to kind of rethink their whole approach. President Xi is trying AI and automation and so on. I mean, is that where we should be putting our efforts?
We can learn from the experience of Europe and East Asian countries. As we say, Japan's present now could be our future. So all those innovations that they have in place, I think we can take on from that.
Right.
The challenge now for the Philippines is whether we want to sustain the 1.9 TFR or to expect that it would decline then further. Then what can we do as a society to prepare for that?
Jack Goldstein.
Yeah, I think adjusting to a gradual decline in population will probably be a good thing for the world. We'll have more open space, more opportunities to manage our ecology, and I think it's probably good news that global population is going to peak soon and that population in rich countries will peak even sooner. The difficulty is that we don't have control right now over whether or not that population decline is gradual. In a lot of countries, because of the big baby boom immediately after World War II, countries are facing a sharp and sudden decline in their ratio of workers to seniors that's going to hit over the next decade. And for that, we really need to think of creative policy solutions to help us get over that sharp adjustment. And then we can think about how do we adapt to a gradual decline.
Frank Swieszny, there is some evidence to say that whilst it sounds very straightforward, that if there are fewer people, there'll be less strain on the environment, there'll be less damage caused through greenhouse gas emissions. It's not quite as simple as that, is it? There's something about the kinds of, not just the numbers who are left, but how wealthy or how poor they are.
Yeah, it's not overpopulation.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Should concern us. So the population number is not the real issue. If a boy or girl is born,
Hey, Charlie, you're on your way to Ghana. Boy, oh boy, you stressed out, tired. Go, you're going to be resting. Okay, then let me recommend to you JN Mobile Spa in Accra, Ghana. Oh boy, JN Mobile Spa will provide organic care in massage. Are you stressed? Do you need rejuvenated, etc.? For your facials, maybe exfoliating, firming, and lifting? Then contact JN Spa on 00233 244 941 002 or 00233 2006 06386, and they will be right there on time. JN Mobile Spa, your health and beauty needs at your doorstep.
The world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Starr, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
The best radio show. Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
All around the world. In your car.
At work.
At home.
On your smartphone.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Are you ready to turn it up?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Hey, this is Archie, and you are listening to Starr Radio UK and the Morning Show. And the Morning Show.
This is Starr Radio UK. Starr Radio UK. This is Starr Radio UK.
Welcome.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
Enlighten your day with Starr Radio. Starr Radio. Radio for the people, by the people.
Love for you runs deep. All of you makes my heart beat. You make a doubt they fade, Jesus, and that's what makes you great. You hold the world in your hands, the hand that made me who I am. Same God now, yesterday, and forevermore. And that's what makes you great. You are God. You will never change. You remain the same till the end. Till the end. You are God. One who took my pain, took away my shame. Lord, you reign. That's why forever call you great. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. Great is to be praised. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. 'Cause I'm celebrate.
Love for you runs deep. All of you makes my heart beat. You make a dog fade, and that's what makes you great.
You are God. You will never change. You remain the same till the end. Till the end. You are God.
One who took my pain, took away my shame. Lord, you reign.
Forever call you great. Great are you.
Okay, let me say massive good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth, and those of you on other planets as well. I want to salute each and every one of you and welcome you to the Starr Radio UK Friday edition of the morning show. Once again, good morning and welcome to the show. I remain yours sincerely, the one and only Archie. From now till exactly 12 o'clock, I'm going to be your captain. I'm going to bring you everything that you need to know, from archaeology to zoology, from Accra to Zanzibar. If it's making the headlines, why not? Get yourself ready. I'm going to bring it all to you. And let me take this opportunity to also say good morning to my able producer, Mr. Francis Gayi, Olayomi Koiki, my colleague and co-presenter, Olakunle, good morning. Anthony Adedeji, good morning. I say it, good morning to you. Bishop Adeshina, I hope you are doing very, very well, sir. Salute you, Pastor Emmanuel Chidi. Good morning to you, Pastor Momo. Good morning, Kojodi, and all you wonderful people who grace our platform with your presence wherever you might be. Rachel, good morning to you all, and welcome to the show. This is Starr Radio UK. This is the Friday edition of the morning show, and let me say special good morning and a happy birthday to Charlotte Aqua, it's your birthday today. May God richly bless you. My regards to the family, Rachel, and all the other siblings there. Salute you. Okay, so by program outline, I'm going to bring you the quote of the day, the weather forecast to follow suit, then the travel update as well. We move from there to have a look at some of the stories making the rounds across the globe. It's known as Global Trotting. We continue from there, and exactly at 11 o'clock, we look into details at all the stories making the rounds, starting from Nigeria to the UK. And then we move on from at 11:30, the lines will be open for you to, let me call it 11:45. The lines will be open for you to add your voice to the discussion. Then at 12 o'clock, the curtains are brought down for the end of the program. So in a gist, that's what's going to happen. But remember, yesterday was a smasher of a program by KB Bossman on the Property Hour show. Now this Sunday is going to be coming back for the Faith Talk that takes place exactly at 4 p.m. So make a date with him there as well. But wherever you are, this is Starr Radio UK. This is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. The quote for the day says, focus on others and be open to different perspectives. Don't just think that you are the only wisest person in the whole wide world. There are others who have got ideas that when you have them, it will help you a great deal. Listen to Starr Radio UK. Now moving on straight to the weather front as well. Let me tell you what the weather is behaving or doing today and over the weekend as well. And let me say good morning to Mr. Dantabi, CEO of GI Accountancy Services. We'll not be able to bring him on because we have to finish the program exactly at 12 o'clock. Just bear with us whilst we do so. Okay, so on the temperatures, yesterday the temperature is going to be 10 degrees. The lowest is going to be 1 degrees. UV level is going to be low. Pollution is going to be low. But this is the detail of it. Now this morning we'll start with dry conditions and sunny spells. In the afternoon, cloud will gradually build in from the west, yielding scattered showers. Some falling heavy and with a chance of hail as well. Now tonight will turn largely dry. There will be a mixture of variable cloud and lengthy clear spells throughout the night. It will be cold with light winds as well. Total temperature once again 10 degrees. Sunset is going to be at 17:30, and sunrise for tomorrow morning is going to be 06:59 hours. Starr Radio UK. Now for Saturday, we're going to be seeing light rain and light winds. Total temperature is going to be 9 degrees. The lowest is going to be 1, and then come Sunday, 9 degrees tops, and the lowest 4 degrees, light rain, and a moderate breeze there as well. So in a gist, that's what's going to happen when it comes to the weather front. This is Starr Radio UK. Don't you go away. Let me take you straight to the travels as well. So on the travel this morning, those of you using the underground, I can tell you shortly, there is good service throughout, apart from the central line that's got minor delays. Also, London Overground is running a good service, DLR, good service. London Tramlink has part closure, so check before you leave. On the major roads in London as well, North Circular A4 has got serious delays. All the others have got no exceptional delays, and therefore you'll be able to zoom through it like no man's business. Now, when it comes to the river bars this morning, good service throughout. Also, on the London cable car, good service there as well. This is Starr Radio UK. This is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now, continue to keep those eyes on the roads as we keep it navigated. So coming on straight to the final segment of the travel update, that's the National Rail. Cross country has got minor delays. First Haul trains, minor delays. First Transpennine Express, minor delays. Great Western Railway, minor delays. London Northeastern, minor delays. Northern Rail Special Service, Scott Rail, minor delays. Southwestern, minor delays. And Transport for Wales, minor delays. And that is where and how I would say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you, wherever you might be on planet Earth. Enjoy your commute for today, but you know what? Continue to keep those eyes where? On the roads.
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medase.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business. The show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Welcome back to the program. This is Starr Radio UK, and this is the Friday edition of the morning show. I am Archie. From now till 12 o'clock, as they say, where we bring the curtains down, I'm going to be here with you. So stay with me. Spend more one day with me. Yeah? Okay. Share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones and invite them to like our pages as well. This is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Okay. Now, moving on straight to what is happening from across the globe. Food crisis. Federal government didn't give states 30 billion each. Makinde replies, Akpabio and customs begin sale of seized food items in Lagos to alleviate food scarcity. That's how bad the situation is, or desperate. Now, Air Peace Airline introduces special student first, and Tinubu directs dispatch delivery of citizens' welfare. Time to stop free float of Naira, says APC chieftain Olawepo Hashim. And the court has ordered the CBN to pay a German, 63.7 million Naira, which is equivalent to $10,000 for illegal detention. Okay. What about Nnamdi Kanu? Okay. Judiciary lost hope of common man. Tinubu pledges reform. Well, so that's why people take the laws into their own hands, because if they think that they're not going to get the justice that they deserve, then they take the laws into their own hands and try to administer justice the way they think is appropriate. But wherever you are, I hope that that is not your stand, because again, when it comes to that, we are all human beings and we need to look at things from a human perspective. But somebody says somebody's wrong you. What do you do? Now, Kenya scraps entry fee for South Africans and other foreign nationals. The move aims to boost tourism and attract business travelers. Previously, all foreign passport holders were subject to visa requirement. We have these visa restrictions going on in various countries. How is it all going to be panning out? The ordeal of Rafah residents continues as Israel intensifies attacks. Now, Ivory Coast towards the remodeling of the French military presence. We know that some of the French, the former French colonies, have decided to do away with the French military presence and their support and all that things, those rules that they were supposed to be adhering to. But what do you think about that? IGP Dampare has been exceptional
Ahmadiyya Muslim mission head, is saying. Do you agree with them there? Somebody will say, yes, it's been exceptional. Uphold public trust and respect human rights in 2024 polls. COP Abiba to please personnel. Well, wouldn't they be compromised? Haven't they been compromised? But what do you think about all that? Lots more coming your way from there. It's all coming your way from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Many missing as deadly fire devastates Valencia apartment. At least 4 people are dead and up to 15 missing after the fire razed an apartment complex in the Spanish city. And then Alabama IVF row, an election year political bombshell. How is it going to augur for them? We're going to be seeing people who need IVF treatment to get what they want, to get case that they might not biologically be able to produce or themselves, okay? Eggs or embryos or whatever things that they do. I'm not a health expert when it comes to that, okay? Gynae. So what do you think when it happened that way? Is it going to augur well for the ruling government, or is it going to augur well for the Republicans? Looking at that, because they are saying that, well, the IVF, the cells that are there, they are looking at them as human beings. Interestingly. So let me put it this way. Those of you, we are all adults here, okay, on this platform. So when it happens that, let's say you are using protection, okay? So you use condoms whilst you are making love, all right? I wouldn't put it that way, having sex, no. And then you distract into that and you chuck it. That means you are killing children. That's what they want to say now, right? Okay, now American company makes historic moon landing as one of the stories making the rounds there as well. And fossil reveal 240 million year old dragon. So how old is the world? Okay, it's all coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. In Texas, student loses case over dreadlocks punishment. And then now Van's mother says she has been shown his body, but he's being made to swear to or agree on the terms of release where there will be a private burial. Why are they scared of making it public? If people don't believe in his cause. But well, again, when it comes to some democracy, that's why I just say all the time that you have to be careful where you are when you are critiquing government, because you can lose your life for that. But if you're prepared for that, somebody will say, why not? Why not? Listeners, this is Starr Radio UK. This is the Friday edition of the morning show, the 23rd day of February, the year 2024. Well, Shamima Begum has lost her appeal over UK citizenship once again. The Court of Appeal ruling means Begum, who left the UK in 2015 to join the IS group, remains in Syria with no chance of return. There have been appeal, and she's lost it again. Now, typical energy bill to fall by £238 a year from April. Hey, or somebody say, hooray! How did that pan out for your pockets? Now, let the appeal bid to be heard by judges in April. He said that he wasn't the perpetrator of the act. What do you think? Okay, in another story as well, Liz Truss, one of the shortest reigning prime ministers for the UK, has said right-wingers need a bigger bazooka. Telling US. So, a bigger bazooka for what? Or for someone to say for where? Okay. And this morning I saw another statement from the former Home Secretary. But it's not here, so I wouldn't touch on it. At times, some of these statements are not one that are the right. It's not substantiated, so I will not bring that one. XL bully restrictions come into force in Scotland as well. Listeners, this is a lot more coming your way from Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, bringing the time now to exactly 5 minutes past the top of the hour. We're going to be taking a break, and once we come back, I'll bring you all the details of the stories making the rounds there as well. That is a musical break, and this is Broken X in One Basket by Kofi Boham. Enjoy it, and I will be with you. Stay tuned, and don't you go away.
Yeah. I was told.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Look left, right, and left again.
The best radio show.
If you don't do this, you could die in pain. A motor go fit to jam you insane. Aye, 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 aye.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
And I took no precautions to look elsewhere, 'cause I can never be a casualty in your hands. Oh my Jesus, say I can never be a casualty in your hands. You have not let one person slip. I can never be a casualty in your hands. I am my safest with you. I can never be a casualty in your hands. I can never be a casualty in your hands. Nobody has been. I will not be the first. I will never be. I can never be a casualty in your hands. No, 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 no. 'Cause I have put all my eggs into one basket. That basket is you, Jesus. 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 Say they can call me and say, they can call me and say, I have made my choice. I will follow till the end of the road. I have no backup plan besides you. My basket is Jesus. I have put all my eggs into one basket. That basket is you, Jesus. 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 Say they can call me and say, they can call me and say, I have made my choice. I will follow till the end of the road. I have no backup plan besides you. My basket, Jesus. Said it's risky to follow Jesus. I tell them leave me, it's not you.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
You spend your money on fun. I push the kingdom. You like to follow the girls.
The coolest way to start your weekend. The coolest way to start your weekend.
So don't advise me. Think on your own life. I have made my choice for life, and I have that basket is you, Jesus.
Archie on Starr Radio. Nobody does it better. You are listening to Starr Radio Morning Show.
I have no backup
Oh, yeah, that's a lovely tune there from Kofi Boham. And he says, I poured all my eggs into one basket, and that basket is you, Jesus. So he's just trying to admonish us to keep our hope, or put our hope in the Lord God Almighty. So wherever you are this morning, I hope that your hope is in the Lord. But that doesn't mean that you have to stay or sit on your oars and just say, well, manna is going to be falling from heaven for me, and that nah. That's not the way. That's not the way at all. What it's going to be is that you take a step out of the boat, and then you can now walk on the sea. So yes, listeners, Starr Radio UK. Now let's move on. Let's move on to the stories, because as we say, a bit running behind time this morning. So stay tuned. The federal government didn't give states 30 billion each. Makinde has replied Akpabio. Oyo State Governor and Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Seyi Makinde, has declared that there is no truth in the claim by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, that states of the Federation got additional 30 billion each outside of their statutory revenue allocation to address the food insecurity challenges in their states. The governor stated this on Thursday, noting that Oyo State has not got any 30 billion naira from the FIRS, or the federal government, and that his government has been and will always be open and transparent to the people of the state. Now, Makinde, who added that he has been doing everything to cushion the effect of the economic hardship on the people, warned that leaders should instill confidence and hope in the citizenry in this trying time rather than playing blame game. Makinde stated this in Ishei, where he commissioned the newly renovated multi-billion naira Ishei Central Mosque facility, facilitated by legal icon Ahmed Raj San. Now, hailing the religious harmony in Oyo State as being exemplary, he added that apart from Oyo State not getting 30 billion from any agency of department of the federal government, he could say the same of his colleagues, governors, as vice chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum. Now, he went on further to say Governor Makinde decried Akpabio's reliance on unverified reports, clarifying that it was impossible for states to get funds from the Federal Inland Revenue Service, since all revenues go into the Federation account and belongs to the federal government, states, and the local government. According to Makinde, the only fund that Oyo State got from the federal government outside of statutory allocation was 2 billion naira out of the 5 billion promised to all states in the wake of the removal of the fuel subsidy. Adding that the federal government had even been asking for refund of the 2 billion. Again, they added that his government has been doing its best to mitigate the hardship on residents of the state, having been first to announce and implement measures to cushion the effect of the hardship through the Sustainable Action for Economic Recovery. Okay, so that's a good one there. But interestingly, in Lagos State, but my question is it going to the right people and selling seized product and clapping? What's all that? The Nigerian customs have started selling seized food items in Lagos. The rice is being sold at 10,000 per 25 kg. The Controller General of Customs, Adewale Adeniyi, on Thursday affirmed the determination of the government to alleviate the suffering of the people through calculated intervention and clear thought out policies, as he spoke with press men at the Harvey Road, Yaba, Lagos zonal headquarters of the Nigerian Customs Services. Now, he said in recent months, the government has been addressing the challenges faced within our economy, particularly the lag effects of insecurity and the current exchange rates issue. Now, these challenges have exacerbated concerns about food security, leading to a concerning trend where food items are moving out massively to neighboring countries. Now, some of the items include over 20 1,000 bags of assorted grains, rice, beans, maize, guinea, corn, millet, soya beans, 2,500 cartons, 963 bags of dried fish. Others include dried pepper, tomatoes, cooking oil, seasoning, macaroni, salt, sugar, and gari. This trend is not sustainable as it puts pressure on our productive capacity and threatens our food security. I know there are others, people who like selling stuff to exporting their goods. Okay, so in this case, they are saying that you cannot be doing that, but they are going to be selling it out to the general public. But as to whether the right people are going to get it, because if I have got lots of food in my house and then you are selling this and I have got the money and I buy it, what have you achieved? So I always say that some of these policies and how we implement them should be targeted toward being means tested, so that the target people, those who are desperate, are the ones who are going to be receiving it. But what are we going to be seeing anything of the sort? Well. This is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. I'm moving on to some other stories as well. Now, Tinubu has directed dispatch delivery of citizens' welfare. The President Bola Tinubu has directed that policies that have impact on the welfare of Nigerians and the economy must be treated with urgency, diligence, and strong sense of duty. Now, the President gave the directive at a meeting with the heads of service, the body of the permanent secretaries, and some directors generals of agencies on Thursday in Abuja. He admonished senior civil servants to rededicate themselves to duty and work with dispatch on matters of citizens' welfare towards improving the lives of Nigerians. The president warned that ineffectiveness and unnecessary bureaucracy that delay intervention on the economy and the programs targeting vulnerable citizens will not be tolerated. He directed that a monthly briefing by the head of service and submission of key performance indicator reports should be made to his office for review. The president added that quarterly interactive meetings between the president and the body of permanent secretaries will now be scheduled. Now, he also mandated the head of service and the body of permanent secretaries to consistently measure progress in actualizing the renewed hope agenda of his administration. Before the next meeting, I want to see progress in the civil service. I have been sending people to check the level of work that gets done. He continued by saying, service to the nation is extremely important, and we are to change the narrative on Nigeria. You and I can change the perception about Africa, not just Nigeria. Well, that's a clarion call by the president, but is it falling on deaf ears, or people are saying to, implement, walking the talk? Now, President Bola Tinubu has reiterated his commitment as the chairman of the Authority of Economic Community of West African States. Yesterday, I brought you a story, the day before yesterday, about the former military leader of Nigeria, Yakubu Gowon, who was calling for sanctions to be lifted from the three neighboring countries who have decided to leave the West African or the ECOWAS community. Now, the president added that an accountable judicial system with integrity will strengthen democracy across West Africa, stressing that the judiciary remain the only hope of the common man. Now, Tinubu made these remarks at a meeting with the ECOWAS Judicial Council led by Justice Olu Kayode Ariwola, Chief Justice of Nigeria and Chairman of the Council at the State House in Abuja. He said, we are committed to transformative democracy because we believe the judiciary can protect democracy. We are ready to support you as learned minds who have the requisite experience and institutional memory to comprehensively reform our institution. He went on further to say, I assure you as a chairman of ECOWAS Authority of Heads of States and Government that the judiciary is one of the pillars to protect our democracy, and it's only in this regard that we can make a difference on the continent, the president said. Now, Tinubu congratulated judges from member states who participated in the two-day council meeting in Abuja, applauding the successful conclusion of their deliberation. He assured them that their recommendations will receive utmost consideration by the heads of state and government of ECOWAS. We will work with you to ensure that your expertise is employed to promote justice in our democratic experiences on the continent and in the region. You are truly the last hope of the common man across our sub-region, Tinubu added. But interestingly, he's made a statement. But when it comes to the delivery of justice, do we have things in place where you can say people are going to get the justice that they demand? Or, like he was saying, the poor man, the common man, has no hope, and therefore thinks that the only way that the leadership or government can adhere or will adhere to what is happening is by maybe demonstrating or by uprising or by some unrest that takes place. It'd be quite interesting to know what you think. Let me know what you think about this. It is all coming your way from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now, Jean-Marie Bockel, French President Emmanuel Macron's envoy for Africa, spoke on Wednesday with the Ivorian head of state Alassane Ouattara in Abidjan, discussing a remodeling of the French military presence in Ivory Coast. Now, as I did say earlier on, some of the countries that who belong to the former French colonies, some of them who have undertaken coup d'etats and who have seen coup d'etats and stuff like that, have sacked the French military from their country. I've told them to leave. So why are they now sitting back and saying, you know what, let's remodel the French military presence in Ivory Coast? Is that going to be something of the sort? Or are they scared? Looking at what has happened in other Burkina Faso, Niger, and some of the other countries there. The term remodeled seems the clearest because it's a global meeting. There is a presence dimension. Some diversities exist. There are also other aspects which already exist in terms of improving support for the Ivorian military presence in the northern zone. Questions of intelligence, questions of development of this or that element of the army to which our friends Ivorians are attached, on which we have a certain partnership, committed expertise, declared the envoy of the French president. In certain aspects, he quoted, there will be development. Here things can, in certain aspects, be less and stronger in other aspects. This is what will be the subject of a partnership. The remodeling seems to be the right state of mind. This is the reason why we have been in extremely positive development, indicated Jean-Marie Bockel. Now, earlier, Jean-Marie Bockel had discussed with President Alassane Ouattara the prospect of the evolution of the military and the security partnership between Cote d'Ivoire and France. The president took the time to listen to us, but also to give us his vision of this country and the regional environment, both the prospects and the problems we face, Jean-Marie Bockel said. Thus, it appears necessary to continue exchanges and dialogue with the Ivorian authorities on military and security issues to reach the agreement on a new military and security partnership between Cote d'Ivoire and France. The same was true of the prospect of strengthening the sovereign military force of Cote d'Ivoire. In this regard, Jean-Marie Bockel welcomed the rise in both quantitative and qualitative power of defense and security forces of Cote d'Ivoire. The strengthening of the sovereign military force of Cote d'Ivoire, the rising in power both quantitatively and qualitatively, and the relationship on this issue is not a blank page. There is work that has to be done and conventions that have been passed. We are in the dynamic and in this continuity but we have discussed new perspectives on different partnerships on which we have things to do, underlying the French hosts. I come to Ivory Coast, and it's not only by chance, he added, we will continue this mission. The spirit is to come with proposals, listening to military issues seen in this prism, then a dialogue. What are they scared of? And maybe the other French-speaking countries can now also say, look, guys, we out. It is All Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. So in the sub-region, the Senegal's president has vowed to abide by the law and not to extend his mandate beyond April 2. Macky Sall, who is wrapping up 2 terms in office, postponed the presidential election for 10 months, citing unresolved disputes over who could run, but his move was struck down by the Constitutional Court as illegal. Speaking on Thursday on a live television, he said, having been sworn in on 2nd April 2019, 2nd April 2024 completes the 5-year calendar, so that's the end of the mandate. And I intend to stop at this mandate after April 2. I intend to step down as president of the republic. Sall's clarification came after the ruling coalition voted to extend his rule in early February. At this time, some opposition lawmakers left the session as the National Assembly rescheduled the election for December. The opposition groups are now keeping pressure on Sall, who said he will hold talks next week. The country cannot remain without president of the republic. The forthcoming dialogue will certainly have to decide or propose whether a consensus can be reached on the way forward. I hope that the political players who are together around me to look at the nation's best interests. I will listen to what the dialogue has to say, and after the dialogue, the Constitutional Council will certainly be able to clarify things. Now, 15 out of the 20 candidates approved to contest in the delayed presidential election have united in a call for the vote to be conducted not later than April 2. In a historic ruling, the Constitutional Court ordered the government to set a new election date as soon as possible, which is yet to do. Now, Senegal has been seen as one of West Africa's most stable democracies, but disputes over the elections have plunged the country into a political crisis that has sparked deadly protests. At least 3 people have been killed by security forces and dozens injured. Listeners, this is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Kenya has waived entry fees for passport holders from South Africa and 6 other countries following widespread criticism of the recently introduced $30 fee. My apologies. The move aims to boost tourism and attract business travelers. Previously, all foreign passport holders were subject to visa requirement, but the government decision sparked backlash for potentially increasing travel costs and bureaucracy. Exemptions now apply to passport holders from South Africa, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Congo-Brazzaville, Comoros, Mozambique, and members of the East African Community, that's the EAC regional bloc. Now, San Marino, Europe's 3rd smallest nation, is the only country on the exemption lists. A memorandum from Kenya's Interior Ministry and Immigration Department said the exempted countries had entered visa abolition agreements or signaled bilateral visa waiver agreements with the East African states. However, travelers from these countries will still need to get an electronic travel authorization document, which is valid for 90 days. It is all coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Updates from some of the African countries there as well. So coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now let's move on to some other stories making the rounds in other parts of Africa as well. And let me bring you this first. COP Abibaya Chumesi Sapon, Director General of Police Welfare at the Ghana Police Service, has admonished police personnel to hold public trust and respect citizens' human rights, especially with Ghana gearing up for presidential and parliamentary election on December 7, 2024. Addressing the passing out parade for the first batch of 187 graduates and general recruits from the Koforidua Police Training School, she urged the recruits to enforce security laws governing the election fairly and with utmost respect for human rights. Again, as graduates, you are passing out at a time Ghana will be organizing general elections at the end of the year. Hence, the need to caution you that in order to live up to the public trust and expectation, you must enforce security laws governing the election fairly with utmost respect for citizens' human rights, COP Chumesi Sapong said. Now, assuring the public, Chumesi Sapong stated that the police service, in collaboration with sister security services, is implementing comprehensive measures to ensure a secure environment for elections to take place without any security breaches. Now, she stated the establishment of an election security secretariat for the first time by the police service, led by the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufu Dampare, dedicated to overseeing all election-related security matters, is contributing to the effective planning of the and execution of security measures during elections across the country. Now, turning her attention to the recruits on parade, COP Chumesi Sapon outlined the vision of the Ghana Police Service under leadership of the Inspector General of Police, aiming to position the service as a premier institution in Ghana and a reference point in Africa and beyond. She said the reforms made in training have started showing positive outcomes among new recruits. According to COP Abiba Chumesi Sapong, previously emphasis was mainly on enhancement of recruits' knowledge on the laws they are expected to enforce when they pass out. But now, equal emphasis is placed on field training activities such as riding, driving, swimming, crowd control incidents and disaster management, crime scene management, traffic management, radio communication, intelligence gathering, community-based patrols. Other areas include charge office management, access control, arrest and search procedures, use of force procedures, human rights, client care, and professional police ethics, tactical progression, weapon handling, and high-risk operation. She therefore urged the recruits that, having gone through the same training model, the Ghana Police Service expects them to exhibit high-level standards that complement the achievements so far chalked towards the maintenance of law, order, and security in the country, in line with our motto, service with integrity. COP Chumesi reminded the recruits that their actions and inactions will be scrutinized by the public. They are sworn to serve, therefore must work diligently. Well, so far, so good. But there is an admonition or someone celebrating the IGP. IGP Dampare has been exceptional. That is what a faith group is saying. The head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim mission in Ghana, Alhaji Mahuvi Mohammed bin Saleh, has extolled the leadership or qualities of the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufu Dampare, describing him as the best the country has had so far. Oh boy. Now, according to the Muslim cleric, the changes and efficiency of the police service since Dr. Dampare took over is so visible for all to see. Speaking at the 91st Annual Convention of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission in Ghana, which was attended by members of the Police Management Board on Wednesday. Alhaji Malvi Mohammed bin Saleh called on Ghanaians to support and protect the IGP from individuals who will be seeking to derail him and his contribution to the nation. Interesting. One of the best things Allah has done for us in this country is to give us Dr. Dampare as IGP at this particular point in time. He's one person who has done everything to raise the image of the police service in Ghana. Now, Dampare is one person Ghana needs at this time, and we owe him our support so he can continue to succeed and do all things he has started. Our current IGP has been exceptional, and everyone is seeing the dividend of good leadership. I pray for Allah blessings on him and his team leading the police services. He called on all other leaders and political class to support the police service in their ongoing transformational drive. It's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Well. Says he's one of the exceptions. I mean, is the best that the country has seen so far. And so, if you have been the former IGP, what was his name? The one he took over from. How would he feel? He wasn't sitting up and doing the thing that he's supposed to do. Oh boy! Well, listeners, this is Starr Radio UK, and this is the Friday edition of the morning show. 11:37 the time. The morning show, the program. Now, interestingly, Ghana is supposed to hold Zambia in a clash, but it looks like the stadium where this game is going to be played has a power disconnection. Now, the Crown Sports Stadium, slated to host the crucial Paris 2024 Olympic Games qualifiers clash between Ghana's Black Queens and Zambia's Copper Queens, face a significant header as electricity remains disconnected. The disconnection is due to an outstanding debt of 400,000 Ghana cedis owed to the Electricity Company of Ghana. This setback has led to the closure of all toilet facilities within the stadium premises. To cope with the situation, the stadium has resorted to using generators as preparations continue for the upcoming match. The power disconnection occurred on Monday evening while preparations were in full swing for the highly anticipated women's football qualifier scheduled today. In its pivotal first leg of their last rounds of qualifiers, the Black Queens aim to secure a victory against Zambia's Copper Queens, which would provide them with an advantage going into the return fixture in Zambia next week. But so what's happening there, man? Well. They are owing that amount. Do they take? Do people come to the stadium for free? When they rent it out for usage by some faith groups and stuff like that, what did they use the proceeds from there for? Why haven't they addressed that? Was it the day before yesterday when the Abuja Electricity Company, they send ultimatum to various government entities, and even the presidential villa was also captured in that as well. But I remember the president issuing instructions for payment to be done in that effect. So the question is, why or how come that state organizations fail to pay when they use electricity? So how can the electricity company be running? I bet you, as I'm speaking, I'm not sure what is happening when it comes to the Jubilee House or the Flagstaff House. What is the name there now? Well, they have names. Every time they change it, everybody comes to power, they decide to change it. Well, we will be looking at that. But are they owing? If they are, what is the way forward? Well, listeners, it's all coming your way from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Bringing the time now to exactly what? 20 minutes to the top of the hour. It is your favorite African it It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. We will be looking into that. So stay tuned and don't you touch the dial. Okay. Let's now move on to some of the other stories making the rounds this morning. That will be after this quick commercial break. Stay tuned and don't you touch the dial. This is Starr Radio, okay? I am Archie, and it is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Let's take a break and I'll be with you.
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go from Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Archie on Starr Radio. Nobody does it better. You are listening to Starr Radio Morning Show.
Welcome back to the final segment of the morning show. And the lines are open if you want to hop in or somebody say hop on, like the Boris bus. And then make your take on the issue. Call me on 0208 133. If you happen to be in the US, or apologies, that number is no more. You want to text or WhatsApp as 0753 966 1744, 0753 966 1744. Our Twitter or X handle is at Starr Radio UK, and email address is info@starradiouk.com. Just get in touch with us and I will allow you or read your comments. You can post your comments on our Facebook or YouTube channel page, wherever you are listening to us from, and I'll make sure I read them out. Okay, so now let's move on to the final segment of the show, and that is taking you straight to what is happening in other parts of the world as well. Now, ongoing stories says at least 4 people are dead and 14 injured after fire engulfed the high-rise apartment complex in Spanish city of Valencia. Now, firefighters were seen rescuing people from balconies using cranes to reach those trapped on high floors. The city's mayor says there are between 9 and 15 people who have not yet been located. There are fears that highly flammable cladding on the building's facade may have helped the fire spread, as in the 2017 tragedy at the London's Grenfell Towers. Now, some 450 people are believed to live in the apartment blocks, according to a Spanish newspaper, Pars. Well, it's quite interesting. So, lessons have not been learned from cladding, the use of cladding on high-rise buildings. When you use them, it's nice. It makes, for the beautification of the structure, or yes, the edifices. But the issue is, just in case there is fire, what happens on that front? We hope that they are able to rescue all of them, maybe people will be able to escape with their lives, wherever it might be. It's all coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now, there is a story pertaining to IVF. An Alabama court ruling that frozen embryos created through fertility treatment are children has delivered an election year opportunity for Democrats and a political headache for Republicans. U.S. President Joe Biden's party is already campaigning on the controversy, casting November's vote as a fight over reproductive rights. For Republicans, the row could pose an obstacle in their carefully laid plans to win back suburban women and swing voters. At least 3 fertility clinics in Alabama have paused in vitro fertilization since last week's ruling. The all-Republican justices decided that frozen embryos created through IVF are considered children under state laws. Now, while the ruling does not ban or restrict IVF, several medical providers in the state cited fears of legal repercussions as they paused fertility services in recent days. On Thursday, President Biden sought to blame the ruling on his predecessor and likely Republican challenger in this year's election, Donald Trump. Biden said in a post on X, he said the Alabama decision was only possible because of the 2022 ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court, which has 3 Trump appointees to nullify abortion's rights. Now, while many conservatives celebrated the end of Roe versus Wade, it proved a potent get out the vote motivator for Democrats, a messaging nightmare for Republicans. Mr. Biden's party will be hoping the Deep South fallout over the IVF will prove as energizing for their electoral base as abortion issues. The Democrats are already depicting the Alabama case as what they see as portent of further assaults on women's rights if their rivals make headway in the coming election. A U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris accused Republicans of hypocrisy during a stop on her flight to Reproductive Freedom Store in Grand Rapids, Michigan on Thursday. On one hand, she said the proponents are saying that an individual doesn't have a right to end an unwanted pregnancy. And on the other hand, the individual does not have the right to start a family, she told an audience. Now, 42% of Americans have either used IVF treatment or known someone who did, according to a Pew survey last year. The percentage rises with increasing earnings, 45% among middle-income Americans and 59% for those with high incomes. Now, those individuals are more likely to be white Americans who vote Republicans, and many are ones whom Mr. Trump is hoping to bring back into the political fold after losing their support in 2020. The IVF controversy could well frustrate that effort. Nashana Gadarari, political science professor at Syracuse University, said, in other words, restricting IVF is going to be unpopular even among conservative and Republican voters, and is an extreme position not shared by most Americans. But do you think that will turn the political fortunes of the Democratic Party? Well, we all live to see. It's all coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now, Alex Navalny. Now, Putin's critic mother says she has been shown his body. Alexei Navalny's mother has said she has been shown his body, but that the Russian authorities are pressuring her to allow a secret burial. In a video address, Lyudmila Navalnaya said she had been brought to a morgue where she signed a death certificate. The former opposition leader's press secretary said a medical report presented to Ms. Navalnaya stated he died of natural causes. Navalny's widow has said he was killed by Russian authorities. Lyudmila Navalnaya said the law required officials to hand over her son's body, but that she was being blackmailed as they refused to do so. She alleged authorities were setting conditions for the burial of her son, including the place, the time, and manner of his burial. She said, "They want to take me to the outskirts of the cemetery to a fresh grave and say, 'Here lies your son.'" Ms. Navalnaya traveled to the North Russian town of Salekhat following the news of her son's death in a nearby penal colony 6 days ago. She has previously been denied access to her son's body. On Tuesday, appealing personally to Russian President Vladimir Putin to allow her to bury him. In Thursday's address, Lyudmila Navalnaya said she was being threatened by the authorities. "Looking into my eyes, they say that if I do not agree to the secret funeral, they will do something with my son's body." Wow. Wow. She said she was told by investigators, "Time is not on your side. The corpse is decomposing." Why? Why haven't they put him in a morgue, in a fridge, to make sure, or embalm him to make sure his body is kept well? So all that they're trying to do is to make sure that the body decomposes and tell you that, well, because it's decomposing, so we have decided to give it a burial. That is it. Interesting. That's why I say that if you want to be critiquing government, you need to know where you are. But at times, it is a place where the rule of law or democracy doesn't actually work. Boy, you have to understand that you are putting your neck on the line. And I admonish those who, I applaud them, let me put it that way. Those who are able to stand and risk everything that they have and say that, well, even if it's going to cost me my life, I'll still get on, I'll still go on. There are people that I applaud greatly, and he's been one of them. Even when he was poisoned, was taken to Germany for treatment. After he received his treatment and he was okay, he said, "I have to come back to the country." And that's what exactly he did. So what do you think? Listeners, it's Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, bringing the time now to 11:54. And we are here in London, bringing you a couple of stories, and we bring the program to a close. Shamima Begum has lost a court of appeal decision to regain her UK citizenship. The ruling means that the 24-year-old must remain in Syria. The government stripped her citizenship on national security grounds in 2019. Ms. Begum left London 9 years ago, age 15, to travel to Syria and join Islamic State Group, or IS. Now, the ruling by 3 appeal judges was unanimous. It could still be challenged in the Supreme Court by Ms. Begum. A solicitor, Daniel Fernand, said her legal team were not going to stop fighting until she does get justice and until she's safely back home. In the ruling on Friday, Lady Chief Justice Baroness Carr said it could be argued that the decision in Ms. Begum's case was harsh. It could also be argued that Ms. Begum is the author of her own misfortune. But it is not for this court to agree or disagree with either points of view. Our only task is to assess whether the deprivation decision was unlawful. We have concluded it was not, and the appeal is dismissed. It's quite interesting because the question that I've been asking people is that, so let's take it that you see your teenage son or daughter behaving in a particular way and you decide not to talk about it, and then something of this sort happens. What do you do? Some from my community will say that, look, at times we see that the laws are skewed against us. Okay? So when it is like that, okay, how do we position ourselves so that the laws we don't get caught up with the law? I know there are some places where, incidents where we have people who have been stopped by the police. They've shown everything that is possible. They were not giving the dogs chance for them to even identify themselves, and blah, blah, blah. They've been put down, and then people have been shot dead, and all stuff that has gone on. Allow justice to run out. And we know all those stuff. But when, as a parent, you look at your ward, and you think there's something that is going on, and I need to say something about it, and they go to their room and slam the door at you and say that, don't come to my room. Under whose roof are you living? Who is paying the rent or the mortgage? Who owns that property? I will come into your room and make you sit up and smell the coffee. Listeners, this is Starr Radio. That is my view, though. Maybe others will have different views. Feel free. You can post it on our page and I will bring that to you. Well, what the parents are going through now, at times, and to the youth as well. At times we think that we know. At that age, we think, hey, our hormones are all like, hoo-ha. And we think that we know. But actually, we don't know nothing. We've not seen anything yet. So, it's best to listen to those who have gone ahead of you. Don't let them bottle you up, though. Because there are some of them, they say, hey, we didn't do that, and then so that, and it puts a fear in you, and therefore, instead of you to be able to act, you don't act. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about the fact that you know that what they are talking about is a right thing as parents, and you as a child, you know that this decision that I've made might not be the right one. Listen to, that's what the Songs of Solomon, or Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, one of the books that Solomon wrote, talks about the fact. It said, my son, listen to the advice of your mother or your father. Okay? Well, I don't know why I didn't say the advice of your father. I said the advice of your mother. It's the mothers who do all the training, is it? But well, we live in a new era where everybody has to up their games. Yeah? All right then, to the final segment, the final story, and then I bring the program to a close for today. The typical annual energy bill will fall to £1,690 from April to the lowest for 2 years under the new price cap set by the regulator. It means a drop of £238 a year, or around £20 a month for a household using typical amount of energy. Lower wholesale prices paid by suppliers have led to the cut in the price cap for April to June, which will bring some relief to bill payers. But campaigners said bills are still high and many will struggle to pay. Energy prices are now at their lowest level since Russia's full-scale invasion of the Ukraine in February 2022. However, even after April's drop, bills will remain well above pre-pandemic levels. The regulator's price cap affects 29 million households in England, Wales, and Scotland. Rules are different in Northern Ireland, though. Now, Ofgem said the maximum amount supplies can charge for each unit of gas and electricity, but not the total bill. So, if you use more, you will pay more, specifically in England, Wales, and Scotland. Now, gas prices will be capped at 6p per kilowatt hour and electricity at 24p per kilowatt hour. That compares to the current gas price of 7.42p per kilowatt hour and 28.62p per kilowatt hour for electricity. Households on prepayment meters will pay slightly less than those on direct debits, with a typical bill of $1,643. Those who pay their bills every 3 months by cash or check will pay more with a typical bill of 1,796. Standing charges, a fixed daily charge covering the cost of connecting to a supplier, have risen to 60p a day for electricity and 31p a day for gas, although they vary by region. The regulator will add £28 to everyone's bill over a year to cover the cost of dealing with £3.1 billion pounds of debt that the customers owe to suppliers. Wow. So even when you have paid your bill, somebody has not paid their bills, you will end up paying for them. Let us all stay at home. But ladies and gentlemen, let me say thank you very much for tuning in to listen to us today. It's been a pleasure coming your way. This is where I have to bring the program to a close. As I did say, I have a pressing meeting that I need to attend to, and therefore we cannot go further on. But whatever your situation is, whatever the challenges might be, if you are up there, hold on, stay up there, so push on, see whether I can go higher than where you are. If you feel you are downtrodden, and you think everything is broken, everything is gone, then be rest assured that still there is hope for you. So let me bring you the song from Coffee Boy. Even as a sign off, it says broken pencil still write. So keep on writing. Don't give up. Don't give in. Until I come your way on Monday, God willing, let me say, have a wonderful weekend and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.